So let's move on. This is Stacey's part. She's going to bring us through. We've done all the work, created the ad. We know our audience. We know all the things. Now we're ready to launch an ad. Take it away, Stacey.
All right. All right, y'all. So let's definitely talk about how we can really make sure that we're executing a good ad strategy. So I want to make sure that we are thinking about not just like, how do I actually just like get an ad out there, right? It's actually more just about how do I bring people into my world and how do I bring the right people into my world? So let's talk about the 5 principles of ads that convert. Can we go to the next slide, please? I don't know if I can. Can I control it? I don't think I can.
You should, yeah.
But okay. So let's talk about the 5 principles. So as you're thinking about your ads, right? As you are, coming up with this ad copy and you're thinking about how to translate that into graphics, right? Because that's the other thing that we also need, right? We need great copy, but we need great graphics. And a lot of what we talked about definitely, speaks to those things. But here's what I want you to think about. Ads that convert have all 5 of these things. They're not just one, not just a couple. They have all 5 of these things. And so the first principle of ads that convert is that they spark curiosity. Because here's the thing, people are not getting on Facebook or they're not getting on Instagram, they're not getting on Google to be entertained, right? I mean, they're not getting on to be sold to. They're getting on there to be entertained, to be educated, to connect, right? That's what they're getting on there for. And then layering on that we've talked about before, you only have 2 seconds to capture someone's attention. And so the way that you do that is you lead with empathy and you lead with intrigue, right? So you want to make sure that you are intriguing someone enough to make them want to look at the rest of your ad. And this is really where that hook really, really shines, and being able to spark curiosity. And like, I like to think of it as like asking someone a qualifying question that is going to make them say yes or no. Because if they say no, that's fine. We want them to keep scrolling, right? We don't want them to, to waste our ad dollars right on them, right? If they are, saying they're not interested, keep on scrolling. But if we do spark their curiosity and they are interested, they do say yes to that qualifying question, then we want to make sure that then that's the person that we want to keep, have them to keep reading and to stay in our world. The next thing we talk about, the principle is that they aren't about you. So I want you to think about when you're looking at your ad, is this about me? Or is this about someone else? Even you can maybe even have someone who does not know you, that doesn't, know your work, maybe a friend or someone like that, right? Who is, who doesn't necessarily, doesn't have their hands in your business. Ask them, like, is this about me? Like, is this more about you? Is this about me? Right? Like, think about that kind of thing. Is this person, or am I talking about how great my solution is? Am I talking about how I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread? Or am I talking about what sliced bread is actually going to do for the person who is consuming this? Right? And like, so that's what you want to start to think about. The next thing is about speak to one person, right? And it's, I love the audience exercise that we went through earlier. As we're starting to think about who our target person is, what do they value, where do they hang out? All of that stuff is important. And when you're looking at your ads and you're evaluating this, I want you to think about, am I talking to one specific person, right? And so in the example that we're talking about with Ebony, right? Like, talking to that, specifically talking to the mom business owner who is tired of seeing, who is the one who's actually telling their kids to clean their daggone room, right? Like, that is the person that we're talking to. They have kids, they're a mom, they own a business, or they work outside of the home somehow, right? So that is a very specific person versus, you talking to me, who's someone who is an aunt. So I'm not necessarily worried about, when my nephew comes over and destroys my house, that's fine, right? Like, he's on, I'm not necessarily too worried about it, right? So you don't have to speak to multiple people. You want to speak to one specific person in your ad. And if you have multiple people in your avatar, because maybe you do speak to people who are not moms, or you do speak to people who are not necessarily, maybe they own a business or they don't own a business, right? You can create ads specifically for each person. So like one example I'll say, so I have a client who was, she owns a technology company. So she owns a software, and her software helps people to kind of deliver their memberships or their courses or their group programs and stuff like that, right? So it's a lot of different things you can use this technology for. And so when we were creating ads for her, we created separate ads for membership owners and separate ads for course creators. They were the same ad, but it's like, are you launching a course or, launching a membership, right? Something like that. So you can separate them and speak to someone who is the same avatar, where they're a business owner, they're looking for, a place to host their program. We tried angles of comparing it to Kajabi and comparing it to some of these other tools, right? So you can take multiple different angles, but you do want to make sure that each ad speaks specifically to one person. The next thing you want to think about is compelling action, which is what we talked about, right? So making sure that you look at your ad and saying you clearly tell them what to do next, right? Like whether it's a video ad, you're saying go download my book or go read, go down try my product, right? Go try it now, right? You want to make sure you're telling people that in your videos, you're telling people that in your ad copy, and you're telling people that on your landing page too. When people get to that landing page, making sure you're telling people to go ahead and download the thing or do the thing. And then the last principle is that it is replicable. And I want to make sure that we understand what I mean by replicable. And what I mean by replicable, is you can clearly see why this ad worked or why it did not work. And the way that you do this is by making sure that you are focused on one specific thing per ad or one specific message, one specific person, right? And so when you do that, you can see like, hey, I saw that when I ran an ad talking to course creators versus talking to people who own memberships, the course creators ads actually took off more. So maybe we're seeing that our creative and our campaigns are resonating more with people who create courses. So let's take that and create another ad and maybe another angle talking to course creators, right? Maybe we talk to course creators who are comparing, Thinkific versus Teachable versus some of these other course platforms, right? So you want to think about like, is this ad speaking to one person? Do I have one specific message that I'm trying to convey? And can I tell specifically what is making this ad work and what's making it not work? And so let's go to the next slide. I want to show you some ads. These are ads from a client of mine. These are her top performing ads. And so I want you to start to what I want to walk through is our hot ads framework and how we are structuring what we just talked about. That exercise we went through really aligns with our hot ads framework, which stands for hook, open, tell. And this is the way that we structure our ads. So if you're looking at these ads, the hook here, right, is to protect your church from legal challenges in 2025. This was a webinar that she did in the beginning of the year to help church leaders understand, what kind of changes are happening, as we move through the year. She has a membership for church leaders to help them with their legal foundations. And so this really, it speaks to church leaders. Mind you, we are not speaking to anybody that just goes to this church, right? Anybody who goes to this church is not going to be able to impact the longevity of this church or the legal stuff of this church, right? We are specifically talking to church leaders. And then this other ad here, like you'll look and you can see some copy at the top. As church leaders, you're focused on guiding your congregation, but are you sure your church is legally compliant? This is something that, is a really good hook for this audience because they are, a lot of, pastors, church leaders, they're very focused on, leading their church and growing their church and, delivering their ministry. But are you safeguarded in the back end, right? That's what's keeping them up at night. It's not necessarily, making sure that their sermon is right. It's likely, the legal stuff, the financial stuff. Maybe they just got a tax bill in the mail and they don't know what to do with it. Maybe they want to make sure, they need to, there are different things they need to do to renew their, nonprofit status and stuff like that. So these are the kinds of things that are keeping them up at night. And so that's what we wanted to infuse in this ad. And you'll notice that between this third ad on the very end, this is the ad that we are testing out right now. We use these other two ads that are the top performers, the two on the middle and the left. Those two ads are the top performers. And so we took those top performers and said, okay, let's make another version, right? Let's use our color blocking because color blocking works really well. Let's use our overlays. We see that having photos of her works really well. But then also making sure that we are talking about, navigating the rapid changes that churches are facing, right? We're tying it to the new administration. So tying, her membership and her offer to the actual time that we're in right now. So you can see how we can speak to the same audience and we can talk to them, one specific audience, which are church leaders who are involved in the legalities of their church and making sure that their church can stay around for the long time, right? We're speaking to one specific person. We have one specific message per ad, right? This middle one is about a checklist that she has for churches to kind of go through and audit themselves and see where they're missing. So we're speaking to very specific person, but then we can also take that and we can turn it into something that is very timely, which is, figuring out how do you, what are some things you can do to safeguard your church under this new administration. So I want you to start to think about how you can think about multiple different angles that you can approach your specific audience with, right? But keeping in mind that you're talking to one person, right? What is that one person kind of struggling with? And so you're hooking their attention, you're capturing their attention, and how the way people consume ads is they're going to see this image and the image is going to stop them, right? They're going to see the image first, or maybe they see the headline first. That's going to stop them, in their tracks. So you want to make sure that your creative is, specific enough to make sure that people stop, scrolling. But then you also want to make sure that you are, opening their minds to what's possible so that they understand, hey, where they're at and why this is important to them. And then you're telling them what to do next, which is downloading the checklist, sign up for the webinar, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we're at with that. So want to talk about 5 ways to waste money with ads. And then I want to leave a couple minutes for, questions and stuff like that. So make sure that if you're starting to have any questions, start to gear those things up, and we can, make sure that, should stick around to answer those. So 5 ways to waste money in ads. The first way is boosting posts. And this is the most common way that I see people wasting money. And the reason that a boosted post is a waste of money is because a boosted post is very limited. And what a boosted post is essentially like if you've ever posted something on Instagram, you posted something on Facebook, and it says, hey, don't you want to, spend $5 or $10 and get like 1,000 more people to see this ad? And you're like, oh, sure. Yeah. Let me, $10. Absolutely. I got that. You'll run that ad and then you get nothing, right? You get comments, you get likes, you get shares, maybe you get some followers, but you don't actually get leads or people actually going to your landing page and buying anything from you. And that is by design, because what a boosted post is you telling Facebook, I want you to show this to people who are more likely to comment, like, or share. But there are different things that you can do when you go into the back end of Facebook, which is business.facebook.com. So if you go through the Meta Business Suite and you run ads that way, that gives you the opportunity to say, hey, Facebook, I want you to show this ad to people who are actually going to who are more likely to become a lead. I want you to show this ad to people who are more likely to convert into a sale, right? And you get more creative flexibility. You get more audience flexibility where you can target your custom audiences, which are people who visited your website, people who are on your email list, right? So you get a lot more flexibility and a lot better performance when you go into the back end of Facebook and run ads that way rather than boosting a post. So that's 1. Boosting posts is a waste of money. 2, not testing enough, because a lot of times we think that we can just take one ad and just kind of like throw it out there and it's just going to bring us, hundreds and hundreds of leads. But that's rarely how anything in marketing ever works. Nothing really works on the first time, or nothing really kind of works, in the first iteration, and no changes need to be made. So you want to make sure that you're going into this with a testing mindset. You're not going into it looking at Facebook as an ATM. You're more so going in and looking at it as a way to test, to learn, to get some data, to get more people into your world, figure out what audiences work, what messaging works, what types of ads work. So you want to start to think about, like, how do I take what I've learned, which is, one of the great things about ads is it gives you so much data. How do I take that data and then what am I going to do with it, right? I need to make sure that I'm optimizing and, testing and trying different things. The third thing is not spending enough, or spending way too much too quickly is also something that, is a waste of money. And the way that this kind of presents itself is, like, a lot of people are, teaching you like, oh, you only need to run, spend $5 a day. But honestly, that's just going to make you move really, really slow, because how Facebook bills you is for the amount of by cost per impression. So it's going to say like, hey, you're going to pay $10 to be able to actually, you're gonna spend $10 to get 1,000 people to see your ad. So if you're spending $5 a day, you're only gonna have 1,000 people see your ad. Facebook has 2.9 billion monthly active users, right? So there are billions of people on this app. And so if you're only having 1,000 impressions a day, you're really just inching along. So I like to tell people to spend at least $15 a day. $10 is the minimum a day. You don't have to spend it, every single day. If you see things that are not working, turn them off. But make sure you're spending enough to make sure you're getting at least a few thousand people to see your ads every day. So that way you can start to really, really get the data, and you can move a lot faster. Because that's one of the great things about these ads is it allows you to move a little bit faster, because you are deciding, hey, I'm going to pay, and Facebook is going to like, all right, I want to show this to people who are more likely to convert. 4th is expecting instant results. Again, ads are just not magic. They're not an ATM. They're not something that you just throw up and set it and forget it, right? It really does take testing. And that's not just testing what the ad looks like, but also testing your funnel, right? Making sure that people who are opening your emails, making sure that they are clicking on your emails, making sure that your sales page actually converts, right? So like there are a lot of different things, different factors that matter into the success of an ad. And then the last piece is not connecting paid and organic, because paid and organic should really be working together. A lot of people either say, I'm only going to run ads or I'm only going to do organic. And only running ads, is what it does is just brings you a lot of bodies, right? Like ads bring volume. Paid is really great for bringing volume, but organic is really great for bringing connection and actually building community with people and building relationships like we've been talking about. So you want to make sure that your organic marketing is also still, you're sending your emails out still, you're still posting on social, you're doing your lives, you're doing your webinars, all that kind of different stuff also matters. But paid is really going to shine at bringing more people into your world so that you can nurture them and help them to get to know you more so that they can go ahead and then buy from you.